and immediately worked to make sure everyone was safe during and after this natural disaster.
During the COVID pandemic, the department became really creative at using space and adapting to changing situations.
Doug Kobernick is the Inspector General for Corrections, basically the state's prison watchdog. He says it could have been worse if not for the prison population recently flatlining due to what Kobernick says is an uptick in grantings of parole.
If you look at where we were headed as far as population, if we had been at where it was predicted we would be at, there wouldn't have that extra space around there, probably. So we're very fortunate that it's been stable.
250 of those incarcerated people are staying here at NSP in a gymnasium and other facilities. The other 137 were split between the Omaha Correctional Center and the Tecumseh State Correctional Institution. NDCS now working through damage assessments and repairs, which could take at least a month.
That takes that gym out of commission for recreational activities for the rest of the population. But then you also have this new population that you have to feed them somewhere, you have to rearrange schedules. So it impacts everybody.
This is a pretty crazy video.
It kind of reminds me of yesterday, not wind-wise, but the Charleston driving. It's like, I think that we see more pictures and videos like this because people have one of these, in their hand all the time. But it's cool to see, but it's just a reminder of how strong wind is. And we know here in the Carolinas, we talk about it all the time, 90% of our storm damage comes from wind. So it's no joke, no matter where it comes from.
Not a joke at all, and that's a huge impact over there, a big facility like that. Gosh, just kind of scary to see, and it does make you hopefully respect those warnings whenever you get one, not just for tornadoes, but for the severe thunderstorms as well. Our weather lately just been kind of gloomy and wet, so thankfully we haven't had too much of that in the last couple of weeks.
Yes, I'm very much hoping that we'll see lesser, wind and storm impacts like that for the rest of the summer and heading into fall, since our worst severe weather season, is in the spring, but that doesn't mean we can't get anything else. I did want to really quickly touch on one of our viewer questions we got, just because it's an easy one to answer. Someone asked yesterday, Tim, about are we more concerned about tropical systems that develop close to the U.S. or far out? I think that the answer to this is it could be either or. The reason why we probably are a little bit more honed in on close to the U.S. is just because of the close proximity.
The closer they are, the more likely they are to hit, but the farther away they are, the stronger they can get before they hit you. And the big ones for us usually form pretty far away.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us for Live Weather Impact on WCNC Plus and WFMY Plus. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Bye, Tim. Have a good night.
See you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. Right off the bat, we want to start with a live feed that's coming in as we speak right now. It looks like D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is hosting a virtual town hall. Of course, this coming on the heels of the Trump administration announcement that it is deploying National Guard and federalizing Metropolitan Police. Let's listen in right now to hear the conversation.
Out our challenges, we take care of our own business and we take care of our own people. So I think sharing your DC story, whether it's on your social media, with colleagues, is important. That we're telling people we don't live in a dirty city. We are not 700,000 scumbags and punks, and we don't have neighborhoods that should be bulldozed. So, like, we have to be clear about our story, who we are, and what we want for our city. So please get out there and share and reach out to us with any information, any concerns and recommendations like we've heard today. And so I just want to kind of be clear with everybody that I have a very my jobs are many right now, and part of it is just practically managing us through this crisis. But I'm also really ticked off about the intrusion on the district's autonomy and the characterization of the good work that we do in this city to make it beautiful, to have excellent services, to attract millions of tourists, to have a growing school system, to have a growing city with new residents showing up every day. So that's the real Washington, and I'm counting on you to make sure the world knows that as well. All right. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. If you have additional questions, feel free to email us at elm@dc.gov. Thank you very much.
All right, folks, so there you have it. That looked like that was the tail end there of that virtual town hall with D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and other officials. As you heard there, the mayor saying she was, quote, her words, ticked off about the Trump administration deployment of National Guards into D.C. and the federalization of the Metropolitan Police. We've been following the latest with this story for the past couple of days now. A couple of developments of note since the last time we checked in. Looks like we are seeing even more rhetoric from the president regarding unhoused folks and where they might go or what could happen to them if they do not leave the city, because ultimately we saw over the weekend the president taking to social media urging unhoused folks in D.C. to, quote, telling them to move out immediately, saying, quote, we will give you places to stay that are far from the nation's capital. Well, then we had the announcement Monday talking about the federalization of the police department, the deployment of the National Guard. He talked about how the federal government would be removing encampments for the unhoused folks there from all over the parks. And so he reiterated again today, we saw the White House talking about how that would be a priority for them, not providing many details on exactly how the relocation would work, but essentially suggesting that displaced, unhoused folks use existing services that are available to them or face fines or jail time. Now, we've also been seeing discussions underway about crime in D.C. And so we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. We'll have a discussion with one of our colleagues at our sister station there in D.C. in just a few moments. But speaking of the White House, we did have Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt addressing some of those questions today regarding D.C. and other big topics. So let's listen into that earlier briefing. And once again, on the other side, we do hope to bring a live report from one of our colleagues there in D.C. reporting on the situation.
Everybody, good to see all of you here again today. On Friday morning, President Trump will travel across the country to Anchorage, Alaska for a bilateral meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The brutal war between Russia and Ukraine broke out under Joe Biden's incompetent leadership, but President Trump is determined to try and end this war and stop the killing. As the president has said over and over again, his strong preference will always be for peace and partnership whenever those outcomes can possibly be achieved. There is no leader in the world right now who has been more committed to preventing wars or ending them than President Donald Trump. Just look at what took place here at the White House last Friday, when President Trump hosted the Azerbaijani president and Armenian prime minister and got the two leaders to sign a historic joint declaration for peace, ending a decades-long conflict that disrupted the region and claimed countless lives. In other news, we continue to see positive economic reports across the board. Today's CPI report revealed that inflation beat market expectations once again, and inflation remains stable. Overall, inflation has risen.
Okay, we'll get back to this briefing from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt in just a few moments. As we mentioned, one of the topics she discussed, what is going on in D.C. and the deployment of the National Guard, among other measures on behalf of the Trump administration. Want to join now with our colleague Lorenzo Hall, who is there in D.C., and you and your colleagues in D.C., you've been reporting on not only announcement yesterday from the president, but everything that has entailed since. And I guess if you could catch us up to speed with the very latest, because from what I understand today, it sounds like the D.C. mayor has met with, it sounds like Pam Bondi, among other federal officials. And we just had a few moments ago here on the feed a virtual town hall that the mayor was hosting alongside other officials, talking about what they'd like folks to do to, I guess, essentially raise their voices if they feel like they are against this move.
Yeah, Vanessa, so essentially today you have a lot of folks trying to figure out exactly how this is going to work. We heard the president talking yesterday, talking about the violence in D.C. and how this is a lawless city and crime is just out of control. And today, a lot of folks were trying to wrap their brains around what he's talking about and what this is supposed to look like, because there's no real crisis in D.C. Typically, if you have some major event, if you have a lot of riots like we saw back on January 6th and also the Black Lives Matter protests following the death of George Floyd, of course you'd expect some sort of intervention from the federal government. But in this case, because we don't have that, we're not seeing that right now, a lot of folks are wondering, okay, what does this look like exactly? As you mentioned, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, she held a town hall, if you will, a community conversation session online, just letting people know what to expect, talking about some of her conversations with U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi there. And I can tell you that for the most part, it's almost like business as usual. We heard the president yesterday, but today we know that Pam Bondi will oversee the D.C. Police Department, but the structure is still in place. We still have our police chief who is overseeing the police department. She still makes all the decisions. But at this point, they're just coordinating with the federal government to figure out where some of those hundreds of officers should be placed. And also you have the National Guard. We saw some of them arriving today at the Armory, but they haven't been dispatched to the city as of yet. So we're just standing by for that.
Yeah, I mean, if I could talk about some of the rhetoric that has been used regarding the crime in D.C., you know, you included one phrase that we've heard from the president, quote, lawless city. We saw today the U.S. Attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro, she had a briefing where she talked about, in part, homicides that had happened in D.C., and there were pictures of people that they rolled out on a poster board. I guess, what do the numbers say? And I guess, how do folks in D.C. feel about the crime, in the sense, do people in D.C. feel like there is a big crime issue?
Yeah, so, you know, Vanessa, as a journalist, you have to talk about both sides. You try to cover every angle. And it was a bit jarring to listen to the president and members of his cabinet talk about D.C. yesterday, knowing that that's not entirely what we're seeing with our own eyes. I think everyone will absolutely admit that, you know, crime is a problem in D.C. Out of control, lawless? Absolutely not. But it's like any other major city. You're going to experience crime. We know that 2023, as restrictions were sort of loosened after the pandemic, it was a tough year in the district. Carjackings, robberies, especially when it comes to children and teens. So yes, it can be a problem, but it's not to the point that what you heard the president mentioning there, being out of control. So I think a lot of people here are just sort of baffled at this point, trying to figure out why now. And yes, they'll tell you they need to get this under control. They believe that the DC Police Department needs more officers. They currently have about 3,200 officers. That may sound like a lot to you, but they also help with federal events as well. So that's why you need a police force of that size. So they'll say, yes, we need to get this under control, but the way the president is doing it in this case, no. We've had these conversations over and over again, especially when you talk about the root causes of crime. When you're talking about gun violence, a lot of people are hungry. A lot of people are out of work. You're talking about layoffs, especially when you look at the federal government and what's happening there. $1.1 billion was pulled from the district's government by Congress. So when you really want to address this issue authentically, that's where you go, not just put a bunch of officers on the streets, because as we've seen before, that doesn't necessarily work.
How would you characterize the response from the mayor there in D.C.? And I guess I asked that in the question, in the context of thinking about what we saw with Los Angeles and the deployment of National Guard there, and it got really heated. The governor, Gavin Newsom, I felt like that escalated, and the mayor there, Karen Bass, she was very assertive in all of the press briefings we saw after, the deployment happened for weeks on end. And I feel like, what we've seen from the DC mayor feels like, I don't know. I guess she kind of
very
indicated
measured.
her hands.
It's
Yeah, very measured. Yeah. How would you characterize it?
Yeah, we noticed listening to the president's remarks yesterday, he didn't mention the mayor once. And when the president has an issue with someone, he will go after them, he will call them names, he will target them, but he did not mention Mayor Bowser because they've had a cordial relationship during his second term. So they've been working hand in hand. She has, this is quite the balance, because DC is known for being a Democratic city, and you're working with a Republican president. So she's been striking that balance, and you saw that play out as well during her press conference earlier today, and also yesterday after the president spoke. So she says she agrees with him on some things. They need to get, she wants to get crime under control. She wants the support of the federal government. So she's trying to work with the president in that regard in terms of homelessness, which is another thing the president mentioned. I don't know if your viewers will understand this entirely, but parts of DC, it's controlled by our local government, and then you have parts of the city controlled by the federal government. So for instance, if there's an incident on the National Mall, that would require the response from U.S. Park Police or some other federal agency. So they really do have to work hand in hand to get this done. So we're used to this working relationship and seeing it play out. So this is essentially what we're seeing play out today.
I'm curious to know, have you found any sort of historical precedent for something like this in DC? I imagine y'all probably are interested in looking back to see, how close is this to maybe something that has happened in the past, if at all?
So I can tell you, so home rule gives DC this limited self-governance. So we can vote for a mayor, we can vote for city council, but we don't have voting representation in Congress. We can vote in the presidential election. We have roughly 3 delegates for that. So home rule is set up in a way that the feds still control DC. It was passed by Richard Nixon back in 1973. And Section 740, it gives the president emergency control of the DC Police Department. And we know this was set up because back then, President Nixon didn't believe that the DC government could get violence under control. So he had this put in there, so if anything happened, we know there were riots because of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. You had the Vietnam War back then as well. You had the heroin epidemic, and Nixon wanted to look tough on crime. So it wouldn't be a good look if you had the capital city near the White House just out of control. So he wanted to make sure he could still put his hand on the lever to get this in place, control the DC Police Department if he needed. And it's just been sitting there since Section 740. A lot of people haven't talked about it till now. So this is the first time we're seeing this play out. This is the first time a president has used this power under DC's Home Rule Act.
I am kind of curious to see, whether this is re-sparking any sort of dialogue about the voting power or representation in DC, just because I know every time I go to DC, I see the license plates that talk about taxation without representation. And we've heard the mayor there saying essentially her hands are tied in a lot of ways, as you kind of alluded to. So is this sparking a larger discussion about maybe changes? I'm just curious about that.
Not yet. Not yet, because there's always that conversation, the push for statehood, as we call it, to give DC, to allow DC to govern itself without this interference from the federal government. For instance, they have to approve a budget. They have to sign off on local laws. So these are people that district residents haven't even voted for. But the problem here, Vanessa, is you have these lawmakers in Congress. Republicans control it right now, and there's no way they're going to let statehood pass. So for the moment, I think that conversation has been dialed back just a bit. But the mayor and other local leaders are making it a point to say, you know, this is why we've been talking about statehood all this time. Make note of what you see happening today. So when this conversation does come up again, when perhaps Democrats do have the majority in Congress and the presidency, they can use this as an example to push for statehood once again.
Yeah, really interesting situation. I'm curious to know what comes next here. You know, as a journalist, what are you watching for? Obviously, I think you started things off by saying that the National Guard is just now arriving today. So, I mean, presumably you'll start to see maybe more of a presence, more visible in the next couple of days. Any sort of, briefings you're expecting from officials in the coming days as well?
I think at this point, a lot of folks are saying, let's wait and see what happens. And a lot of people don't understand this as well, Vanessa. Since we are Washington, D.C., we see these forces all the time. Not the National Guard. That is a bit different. The last time we saw them was shortly after January 6th. They were on the streets, 2021, they were on the streets for a couple of days. It may have been close to a month at that point, obviously because of the unrest following that attack on the Capitol. Then before that, you had the protests following George Floyd, those protests. So you had the National Guard. Their presence was felt in the city. They were primarily around the Capitol. But in this case, we don't know where the National Guard is going to be stationed. And what that looks like, it may be, again, jarring just because there is no crisis here. Nothing is happening. So do you have the National Guard just stationed up in a random neighborhood? The optics don't look good, but in terms of how effective they are and what they can do, that is still unclear. We've seen hundreds of federal agents out in the streets. They've made a number of arrests, but those have been similar to what the DC Police Department will make on any given day. So we're not seeing much of a change right now, but a lot of folks are just waiting to see how this plays out.
And as far as we know, it's 30 days. I guess that's the latest that I had seen. And after that 30-day period, there would be more permissions, I guess, that need to be done to extend that stay.
Yeah, and you need a joint resolution of Congress to get that extended beyond 30 days. That is highly unlikely. No one believes that will happen. But again, you're talking about a president who has defied the laws plenty of times. So we're not sure how that's going to play out, if this would just, fall out eventually, without making a mark or making much of an impact here. But the expectation is that things will go along as normal. You will have the federal presence here in D.C. Helping to lower crime. The National Guard will be stationed as well. But outside of that, I don't think anyone is expecting much more than what we're seeing in the next couple of days.
All right. Lorenzo Hall, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us here on Live Impact News, giving us not only the very latest, but also, some local insight. Because, I think a lot of folks don't know some of the nuances of D.C., and maybe we all learned something.
No, you bet.
All right.
No, thank you for having me on. I think what you all are doing, just to piggyback off of that, people don't understand what life is like in D.C., so you hear from the president, if folks may not travel here, and you just take his word for it and assume the worst, because he does have this megaphone, he does have this national platform. So what I think you're going to see in the coming days, back to your last question really quickly, Vanessa, you're going to see more D.C. local leaders taking to the national airwaves to sort of paint a more accurate picture of D.C.
Well, we certainly will be covering all that is to come here with the story. We thank you again. Take care, Lorenzo.
You bet.
All right.
Vanessa, thank you.
Well, folks, we're going to turn now to a live feed regarding aviation safety. And this is an aviation roundtable that is underway right now. It looks like we've got a couple of officials, including we've got the Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, FAA Administrator, and some local lawmakers. Let's listen in right now about the air traffic control system being discussed there.
In 74 AWAS, automated weather observer systems for Alaska. Gigantic. So these are historic investments that our state needs, and I just want to thank the Secretary again. He's been on the ground here By the way, he's the acting administrator of NASA right now, so unfortunately he's got to cut his Alaska trip a little bit short after our Port of Anchorage visit, because he's got to get back to the White House for a NASA executive order signing with the president. But that just gives us an excuse to get him up here a lot quicker in the future. And again, to both the secretary and the administrator, who's just been confirmed recently by the Senate, boom, he's already up to Alaska, all over the state, working on aviation issues. It's really great for our state, and I can't thank both of you gentlemen enough. So, Congressman Begich, I know you want to say a few words, and we'll turn over to the secretary and the administrator.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator, and thank you for your continuing commitment to ensure that executives in the administration come to Alaska and see what makes us so unique. 82% of Alaska's communities are not connected to the road system. They rely on safe and reliable transportation in the air and by sea where applicable. And it's so important for us to make sure that we are making those kinds of investments in Alaskans' safety as they rely on these systems for food and transportation and medicine and emergency services. And that is what has been prioritized in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. We have resources that we need to upgrade critical infrastructure, to upgrade our FAA systems. $12.5 billion is a major down payment on upgrading those key systems that have been antiquated for quite some time. So it's very exciting to welcome you here, Secretary and Administrator, to Alaska. Thank you for making the trip up here to see in person what the challenges and opportunities of our state are. And certainly what we have seen and what we've experienced over many years is that that Alaska, while we do have challenges, there's an opportunity to innovate here like very few places in the United States, maybe nowhere else in the United States. And so while we have challenges, this is a great place for us to experiment and learn and develop new processes and systems that can be scaled and rolled out for the benefit of all Americans. So thank you for being here, and we're excited to hear from you.
All right, listen, it's great to be in Alaska. Just a quick side note. As you're nominated by the president as a secretary, you go around and talk to Republicans and Democrats in the Senate. You introduce yourself, and they'll ask you questions, and you'll talk about philosophy. And as the nominee, you don't want to answer their questions about philosophy because you're not confirmed yet, so you don't really answer those questions. But I'll just tell you that I had never met Senator Sullivan before. And one of the first things he asked me is, if confirmed, do I promise to come to Alaska? To which, by the way, is not a hard ask. It was an easy yes, of course I'll come to Alaska. The last time I was here was in 1994. I did lumberjack competitions and exhibitions. And so I was is it Palmer? Was that where the state fair is at? Yeah. So I did the state fair in Palmer, and then traveled with my mom around the state, and I haven't been back since. Became a huge fan of Hobo Jim. Saw him when he was here. Sorry for his passing. I actually sang a few of the songs.
You did?
The senator gave me a little credit.
You had me at yes with Hobo Jim.
But listen, I'm happy to be here, honored to be here. And I think it's so important to recognize that, again, the rates of aviation crashes and aviation fatalities in Alaska are unacceptable. And I think for too long, the lower 48, and specifically the swamp in Washington, D.C., hasn't heard the plea from Alaska for more help. And really it is, we need better technology. We need some investments in a state where 82% of our communities can't be reached by road. And so if we're going to bring people and supplies and services into our communities, we use aviation, and we need it to be safer. And so that message has been heard loud and clear from your delegation. $120 million up front, but I want to be clear, that's not it. We're going to need $31.5 billion to complete our whole nationwide upgrade to the air traffic control system. We got a historic investment. Never happened. $12.5 billion from the Big Beautiful Bill. And that's for across the national airspace. This is a lot of the technology that's going to improve the safety in the airspace, and also it's going to eventually help with the efficiency. Maybe that's not as, but it'll actually, here in Anchorage is a huge deal with the efficiency side of using the airspace, using it well and using it safely. So I couldn't be more honored to be here with the administrator and with 2/3 of your delegation to start this process of spending this money well. And I would just note that in a state that some people think that you're just their playground, this administration doesn't see you as their playground. They see you as a state that deserves respect, a state that deserves investment, and you get that, I think, with the team that fights their heart out for you every single day. So the message is loud and clear. And just if I could just say another, the senator and I exchanged cell phone numbers when we first met, and it is a two-way street. When you need something that I need to be aware of, you reach out, text, and call. And by the way, when I need the Senate to move on certain things, one of the first calls that I make is to Senator Sullivan. And so I appreciate his partnership and friendship in the fight that he has for Alaska. As he mentioned, I have to go home tonight. There's something happening at the White House that I have to be at. But I promise I'm going to be back up. I want to get to Nome, and I want to get to Fairbanks. I want to get to Ketchikan and other places throughout the state. And so I commit to coming back. And again, it's not a hard ask. I appreciate you.
He's going to come back when it's 40 below zero.
Maybe not 40 below. And maybe we'll want to have daylight the next time I come back too. So maybe not in January. But I'm looking forward to it. And so I'm excited to be here. And I want you all to understand that we see you, we hear you. We are going to work with you to make sure you get the upgrades that are necessary to radically improve the safety in aviation in Alaska. We're also going to talk about ports a little later today as well. Also critically important for your economy. So honored to be here. Thank you both, Nick and Dan, for your friendship and partnership. And with that, I couldn't have a better teammate at the FAA who's been leading the charge in a profound way where the reforms are needed. And again, he stepped in just recently and is running wild in a positive way, and just done a great job. So let me introduce our FAA administrator to say a few comments.
Well, hello, good afternoon. It's just a real honor to be here. As Senator Sullivan did lay the invitation as part of my confirmation process, and I agree, it was the least demanding ask of any of the engagements that I had in my confirmation hearing. Of course, everybody believes Alaska is unique, but that becomes a little rote. People just, Alaska is unique, like it's some enigma, an unsolvable problem. But what we do have up here is very innovative people, people that want to find solutions to real problems. I look forward to leading the FAA in a way that will be a responsible partner and a helpful, innovative agent to unlock some of the opportunities that are here, not the least of which will be what we've seen in the President and Secretary's push on beyond visual line of sight for drone usage, which I think could really be critical.
Folks, we're going to break away from this to bring you something a bit closer to home right now. We've got some footage just coming in from our crews at the first CMS board meeting before school is set to start, and sounds like folks are protesting ICE. And let's go ahead and take a look at a clip, and then we're going to bring you to the meeting if we can.
Ban ICE from schools. Refuse unjust orders. Ban ICE from schools. Refuse unjust orders. Ban ICE from schools. Ma'am. Refuse unjust orders. Ban ICE from schools. Refuse unjust orders. You have the power. It's in your...
So this is coming on the heels, of course, of a lot of immigration-related dialogue where we are seeing folks who have spoken out in the community saying that they're concerned with the potential of immigration officials coming onto school campuses potentially and trying to find people who could be deported. And so we are seeing, in response to that, various districts trying to come up with policies on how they may or may not even try to, deal with these federal officials, if by chance they ever do show up to a campus. We actually had, for a second, it looks like in that CMS meeting, a slide that was up where it looked like they were talking about what the policies were at CMS. I'm not sure if they're still on it or if they've moved on. Jeb, do you still want to go to the meeting? Okay, let's go to it right now and we'll listen in.
School year. Last but certainly not least, we need you. We need all parents, all community members. We need you all to partner, volunteer, and engage with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. We absolutely cannot achieve endless possibilities for our students without you. So please join us in shaping the endless possibilities for the future of our students by signing up using the QR code located on this slide. And there are so many ways that you can contribute to the success of our students and staff by using the QR codes on this slide. This is a one-stop shop. You have all of the QR codes you could possibly ask for in this presentation. So let's make sure that you are checking out the Back to School website linked on this slide and located on the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools website. More information is included there, including our top 10 things to know. We want you to have a successful start to the school year because endless possibilities for students to graduate, enrolled, enlisted, or employed start with CMS. And that concludes our presentation. Chair Sneed.
Thank you so much. Board members, usual cadence if you have questions about what's been presented.
Hi, I just had a quick question. So I know that you mentioned that like the Infinite Campus information went out to the parents, but I know myself, I'm a sucker for checking my grades all the time, and I've noticed that no information has come out to the students about any or signing up for all that. So I was wondering if you had an update on that communication process.
Sure. So that process will be starting with the beginning of school. We do encourage parents. Our goal right now is to make sure we've got all students registered, enrolled, and that we've got parents with their accounts ready to go for the start of the school year. And we will be focusing on communication to students so they'll know what to do to both be able to access any of our online platforms as we start the school year, as well as Infinite Campus. Thank you for that.
Sorry.
You may have mentioned this. Thank you for the presentation. Does Infinite Campus replace Parent Square?
It does not.
Okay.
And what we continue to want to communicate with our community is that Parent Square is our communication tool. So we're still going to use Parent Square to both communicate district-wide messaging, but also to communicate with teachers or schools. But Infinite Campus houses all of your students' information. So you would go to Infinite Campus, that app, to be able to see grades, attendance, any other information regarding your student, but Parent Square is what you would use if you're going to receive messages from the school or send messages back to your school, your child's school or teacher. Both will live together as they did with Power School last year.
Thanks.
Sure.
Board Member Easley.
Yes, I have two questions. So the first one I'm going to say is, you specifically mentioned when you're trying to find a Infinite Campus that you have to use your child's legal name. Power School, we are allowed to change that for our students, for students that go by different names for whatever reason. Is that going to be accepted, or are we going to be able to do that? Our parents are going to be able to do that in Infinite Campus?
What we'll need for you to do is any issues or concerns around what's currently in Infinite Campus need to be taken to the school's data manager. You can do that in one of two ways. You can call the school, or new this year we have Let's Talk. So if you go to your child's web page, at the school web page on the website, then you'll see at the top right-hand corner a button that says Contact. When you click on Contact, a screen will pop up, and then you can enter a message directly into that form, and it will go to the school's data manager, and that data manager will be able to either respond electronically or be able to call you. So call the school or fill out the Let's Talk form. All of those concerns, questions would go through the data manager.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, 1 second. Hang on. Just want to do the first round first. That was your first
question.
Sorry.
By all means, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, you sure?
Yeah,
okay. So once again, previous Power School came with historical data, former grades, EOG scores, those kind of things. And from what I have heard, now I have not seen Infinite Campus yet, but from what I have heard, that data is not in there currently. Is that something that's going to be added, or is that coming, or is that just not going to be a feature anymore?
Data all the way back to 2013 was cleaned up over the past of the course 6 to 8 months. All of that data still exists, so I don't want anyone to be worried. In fact, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools was given the accolade as having the cleanest data cleanup process across the state of North Carolina, of which we're very, very proud. As the state is still syncing all of the data across LEAs throughout the state of North Carolina, so data is still available. However, if it's not showing up in the way that you've normally seen it, for students and staff, we'll be doing training that will help everybody access what they need to. And then for parents, you can reach out to your child's data manager to have access to any student data that is needed.
So it will be coming district-wide, it's just rolling out. Okay, thank you.
If you could just
I'm done. Thank you.
hold on 1 second, I'm going to get to board member 9 since we're doing our first round.
Thank you, Beth, for the questions. If people are having trouble with their information not working, or both parents not being able to log in because theirs are connected, who do they reach out to? Is that the tech person at the school if they're having trouble setting up the accounts, or with Parent Square?
Yes, that's going to be the data manager. What we're seeing right now is that most often when parents are struggling, they're able to create the account, but when they're trying to connect their child to the account or have both parents on the account, sometimes they're encountering issues. And that usually means that something needs to be updated in the system. Maybe an address has changed, or something has changed with something in a student's history. And so the same process would be followed. You can either call the school and ask for the data manager, or you can go to the school's webpage, click contact in the top right-hand corner. That Let's Talk form will come up, fill in the information and what you need, and that will be routed directly to the school's data manager for a response. Thank you for that question.
Perfect. I also want to say huge kudos to being able to fill all the forms out online, too. I'm very excited about that.
That has been one of the, we had our Superintendent Parent Family Advisory Council meeting, and I felt people were going to jump for joy over Teams because they were so excited about that. It's a big win for sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's, any other question? Last one.
Yeah, so kind of just going off the technological issues, I've also heard that, yeah, parents are having trouble logging in, but it's also going off the fact that I think they forget their password, and then I've heard that they're having trouble clicking the forgotten password button and then calling the school. But from what I've heard, so this was my mom. She's having issues. She's just wanting an answer for this question. But so basically, yeah, she forgot her password, and so she called the school, and she was like, hi, there's no forgot your password button. And I guess the school has said that they have heard multiple questions about that. So I think there's a big confusion around that. And then also, I know you mentioned that it's going out to students on the first day of school, but I was wondering then, how will you be able to check your schedule?
We'll follow up, not necessarily the first day of school, but we will have communication going out to students.
Okay, perfect.
And I'll look into that forgot password problem.
I was like, I feel so stupid asking that. But.
Yeah, well, what you're helping me know is that in our messaging over the next couple weeks, we need to make sure we say, and don't forget your password. Write down your password so that we can remind everybody to do so. But again, it's the school's data manager that would be able to support that. So and a huge thank you in advance to everybody for grace and patience, as that data manager is receiving a lot of inquiries, but we're working on it, and we'll have everybody ready to go by the first day. Thank you for your questions.
I think that is it. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I turn to Dr. Hill for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening. My report tonight includes examples of excellence across our 4 pillars. For academics, I'm beginning with congratulating our summer graduates. We had more than 150 students who earned their high school diplomas on August 7th. We are incredibly proud of them and wish them the very best. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools proudly launched Camp CMS 2025 in July, which is a dynamic, tuition-free summer learning experience designed to promote academic growth for students and professional development for educators. We were able to serve rising kindergarten through 12th grade students, and it offered 3.
So folks, we kind of prefaced our jump into this live feed of the CMS board meeting just a few moments ago with the discussion that there was a protest of sorts. We saw the woman holding the banner protesting potential ICE activity on CMS campuses and how the district might be responding. We were able to scrub back through the meeting, so this is just moments ago where we saw the district talking about its policy and how it would handle any sort of presence from ICE on campuses. So once again, scrubbed back, so this is just a few moments ago. We're going to take this for you so you can kind of see that policy.
Consequences in accordance with our student code of conduct. The mission of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools is to create an innovative, inclusive, student-centered environment that supports the development of independent learners. We understand recent federal orders may create uncertainty for some families, and we want to reassure you that our schools remain safe and welcoming spaces for all children. All children can attend public school, regardless of citizenship status. Our district has always followed federal and state laws and will continue to do so. School leaders know the procedures law enforcement must follow on campus and will consult with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools Legal Department to ensure compliance with applicable laws. Additionally, our district does not ask about or record any family's immigration status. We will continue to honor all laws protecting the privacy of student records as outlined in board policies. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools remains committed and dedicated to maintaining safe and welcoming environments where every child can learn and succeed. If your child has concerns or needs support during this time, please contact your school's Student Services Department.
Now that you know what to do.
All right, so once again, that was just moments ago. We scrubbed back through the meeting, and if we can return to CMS, we will. If we start to see any important discussions coming up, that meeting continues live right now, and our team will watch it in the background. We've got another local live feed here. This is coming to us from the town of Waxhaw, where it looks like there's a discussion of the downtown master plan and what some of the priorities would be as they go forward with any sort of development in Waxhaw. Of note here for this meeting, we're keeping an eye on a potential public comment section that might regard a development proposed called the Views at Olivia, which would be a 315 multifamily unit development to start, and there were some concerns about traffic. So that might also come up tonight here as we take Waxhaw. But let's go here right now to talk about the downtown plan.
Y'all have got zero vacancy. We never work in a community like that. You all are you have an awesome downtown. You have a downtown that truly is a destination, like Irene was saying. The market data bore that out. I think our role here collectively is to take this awesome, great downtown that you have and help you all take it to the next level. Now, all of our work that we do with the Boudreaux Group is market-based planning. So, everything starts with understanding the market, understanding what those economic opportunities happen to be, and that data informing things like land use, informing things like transportation, and certainly informing things like economic development. So that's what I want to share with you here. In order for us to really do that detailed market research, we have to first understand what is the market geography that's relevant to downtown. I think you all know that your downtown doesn't just serve the people that live within the municipal limits of Waxhaw. It serves a much broader area. The data absolutely bore that out. The first thing that we looked at was placer data. Placer, if you're familiar with it, is it's phone locational data, and it can track people who come in and out of your district, and that's the study we did here. We drew a boundary for your district and pulled all of the data for a one-year period during that time, 1 year leading up to the beginning of this plan. During that time, the year before we started this plan, you had 1.5 million people, unique visits that came into your downtown. And I think the official word for that is just an insane amount of people. That's 3,000 unique zip codes. So there's the main Waxhaw zip code and 3,001 other zip codes that came into your downtown. You've got a very broad market, and you'll see that here on the next slide. But just 37% of your visits came from the Waxhaw zip code itself, even less from the town of Waxhaw. You had folks from all 50 states and D.C. Placer doesn't collect international data, but I know that y'all had international visitors here to this community as well. And, all this tells us is that your downtown, the small little downtown, nestled at the bottom of, North Carolina on the border with South Carolina, you are a destination. And the businesses that are here, the properties owners that are here are a testament to that. So what we do with that data first, that's just kind of looking at the sheer numbers, is we take that and we analyze it and figure out, okay, what is our geography that is relevant to us? And basically what we do is we look at the visits within individual zip codes and compare them visits per 1,000 population. And what that does is that helps us define what our primary bread and butter local market happens to be. That's the orange area that you see there on the map. And then what our secondary trade area is, which is also a loyal local customer base, but those folks will live a little bit further away and they have choices when they're going out to eat. Are they going up to Ballantyne, or are they coming down here to Waxhaw? But what we see here is that you all have a pretty large trade area. I don't normally see this many zip codes represented in a study, in a trade area, particularly in an urban market, which you all obviously are in the Charlotte metro area. If you look at it, you see that purple secondary trade area pulls to the north. I can tell you a lot of times when I come into these communities and I do my research, I feel like I have a good understanding about what the trade areas are going to show, just because I've worked in similar communities and I know the markets and all of that. And rarely am I wrong, but I was wrong here. I thought that you all were going to be pulling more from South Carolina, that your trade area was really going to be the inverse of this. That wasn't the case at all. You can see that your primary trade area is Waxhaw, the main Monroe zip, and then Lancaster. And then your secondary trade area is everything north of you all in South Charlotte. And as we got talking about this, and we talked to some of our stakeholders and visitors, what we learned is, yeah, you're pulling from that area. You are absolutely relevant to that area. And it's most likely due to the fact that there's a real lack of traditional downtowns in that purple area. You all here in Waxhaw serve as that traditional historic downtown for a much larger market. And it's also due to those independent businesses and dining establishments that you have in your downtown that really makes it a destination. All the data points to that. Once we figure out those trade areas, then we do the detailed market analysis. And I'm just going to hit on some of the high notes on this. In the first couple of slides, let's just chalk this up to things you all already know, okay? You all have had substantial growth in the past, population growth. And again, that word doesn't do your growth justice. In the last 15 years, you all have had 142% population growth. If we look at, go back to the last 25 years, so go to 2000, and granted that's 25 years, you've grown by population by a meager 682%. I mean, that is just absolutely significant, substantial growth. We all know that. Everybody in this room knows that. We also have, when we compare you all to the larger region, you all are more affluent than your neighbors. You have a higher median household income. Waxhaw was $119,000 median household income. The zip code, which of course does include Marvin as well, you all know that, it was about $147,000 median household income. Both of those figures are really high when we look at the larger region. By the same token, we look at other demographic indicators. You all have a lot of younger people here, younger professionals and younger families here in your town, and you all are highly educated. So again, chalk all that up to things you already know. Now, we're not going to dwell on this because I think our focus on downtown is more looking at downtown as a commercial center, but we also looked at housing. You all, if you look at your housing stock in Waxhaw proper, 79% of it was built since 2000. Again, that goes hand in hand with the population increases that I was talking about before. Median home value, again, if we compare you all to the larger region, you all, Marvin, others that are right here next to you all, your zip code, really are at the higher end of home values within the larger region. Those are also real positive indicators. But another thing that I think that's really important for us to understand, and it may even have some relevance in our downtown, affordability. If we look at all the people that own homes and rent homes in your area, within the town proper, 34% of your renters are cost burden. And what that means is they're spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs. So that'd be rent plus utilities. That 34% is a high number. I don't have it here on my notes, but the homeowners themselves was about 10 or 12%, I believe. That's not, I see that quite a bit whenever I'm working in communities, whether they're affluent like this area or whether they're not. But that number, 34%, is something that we have to understand collectively in this larger, not just downtown, but the larger area. But I think all of this points to we've had exceptional growth. I'm trying to think of other words to describe your growth. You've had a tremendous amount of residential that has developed over time. Downtown needs to support that, right? Downtown needs to support your residential. New business, expanded businesses in your downtown will diversify your tax base, which is really important when we think about, I think 89% residential and 11% commercial, and I know that there's some newer numbers that show even higher residential percentage as well. So downtown can be a receiving area for us to have some of this new commercial investment to diversify our tax base, but also to support the commerce that our locals need. So the last couple of slides really gets to some of the bread and butter of what we looked at. And the main study we did from a commercial standpoint is a retail leakage study. And I'm sure there's loads of people in the room who are familiar with retail leakage. But for those that aren't, I'll explain it to you, and I have to use my hands to do this. If we look at our trade area geographies, and we compare what stores that exist in that trade area sell on an annual basis to what residents who live in that trade area purchase on an annual basis. If residents are purchasing a lot more than stores are selling, that means dollars are leaking. They're going outside of your community because that particular good or service isn't located here. Well, when we look at your data, whether we look at the town of Waxhaw proper, which is less important than our trade areas in terms of market research, but if we look at our primary and secondary trade area as well, you all have a significant amount of leakage, and leakage translates directly to demand. But what this data shows is that our businesses that we have within our downtown and within our town of Waxhaw proper and within our trade areas aren't really serving the needs of our residential population. In fact, if we look at our primary trade area alone, last year there was $2.7 billion in leakage. Leakage, again, translates directly to demand. And all of that is really kind of the writing on the wall for us if we're thinking about economic development in Waxhaw proper, but in this case, particularly in downtown. What does that mean? The last slide here I'll share with you is a very conservative capture scenario. We look at all that demand, we look at all that leakage, and we think, okay, if we just capture just 10% of what's leading those 3 primary trade area zip codes, and just 1% of what's leaving our secondary trade area, the purple area that you saw on that map earlier. It's a very conservative estimate. What does that mean in terms of potential capture into the core of our community and into our downtown? And we're looking at the potential for up to 331,000 square feet of additional commercial that could be accommodated in the core of your community. And you see some of the key categories there. We talked about how y'all have got a great dining destination. You absolutely do. If you look at your placer data, by the way, you'll see peaks at lunchtime and at dinner time because your restaurants are really driving a lot of your activity in your downtown. But so y'all have built this cluster, y'all have become this dining destination, but there's still demand for additional dining establishments here in your community to the tune of about 47,000 square feet. Clothing stores was another opportunity for demand. Grocery stores was interesting. Now you're most likely not going to get or don't want or don't have space for a traditional conventional grocery store in your downtown, and we're showing about 35,000 square feet of demand. That, just to give you a frame of reference, that's about a typical Food Lion is what we're talking about there. Now, again, we're not suggesting that that be accommodated in downtown, but you certainly could have the potential for independent grocers that go in your downtown. The demand shows that, as well as specialty foods, which is in that category as well. If we're thinking about the types of uses that will continue to solidify our downtown, there's demand for that. Other opportunities, general merchandising, that's a weird category because it covers everything from Walmarts and Targets to Dollar Generals and Family Dollars to independent general mercantile like you have already in your downtown, but also things like you may be familiar with mass general stores and other destinational things of that nature. There's demand for that. Again, we're not suggesting that you look for a Dollar General in your downtown, but there's demand for that type of business. How can we recruit that type of business that's going to be a destination and help really solidify the market in our downtown? Other opportunities are furniture and home furnishings, health and personal care, which is drugstores, electronics, sporting goods, which I think is very important here in your community with the recreational resources that you all are continuing to build here. There's demand for commerce to support that. Nursery and garden stores. We look at about 70 different categories, and we break down this demand by those different categories. All of that will be in the final report, and these are just the highlights here. So with that, I will turn it back over to Ryan or
So, of course, folks, we said that we were awaiting an item where there would be a public comment section regarding a development. We're going to keep an eye on this in the background. If we start to see any sort of activity on that front, we'll break back in here with this feed out of the town of Waxhaw. Meantime, we wanted to make sure we were catching you up to speed on some of your top stories tonight out of the Charlotte area and beyond. We've got an update that we've been following out of South Carolina. We followed this as breaking news during our evening newscast. Lancaster police at this hour say that they are still searching for a person who is wanted for murder. So here's a picture right now. 56-year-old James Singleton. He's accused of shooting and killing a man last night at Palmetto Place Apartments on Pardue Street. That victim in that case, we're told, is 57-year-old Edward Townsend. Police think that Singleton might be actually traveling on foot. If you do see him, you are asked to not approach him and just call Lancaster Police or just call 911. All right, and then we've got this information as well. We told you last week about a body that was found in the Catawba River and that there were some testing underway to try to determine who it was and how they might have died. Well, just now we're getting some updates today from Lancaster County deputies about the man who was found in the river. They've identified him as 70-year-old Mohammed Kargarian, and deputies say that he actually lived alone in southeast Charlotte. The cause of death still under investigation. However, authorities are telling us that autopsy results show there were no injuries that would indicate any sort of violence or criminal activity. Of course, more on that to come. And then for here, as we look ahead to school, we've got a lot of preparation that's been underway. Charlotte Preparatory School, you might remember that there was a fire that was pretty devastating for the building a couple years ago. Well, we're actually getting a look at the new structure to see how things are looking there as it is getting ready to welcome students back for a new school year. So our Jessie Pierre got a look inside. She gives us a peek at how the teachers there are preparing.
Classroom doors are officially open, welcoming the teachers on the official first day for staff and faculty. And next week, they'll be welcoming the kiddos. From flames to rubble to a state-of-the-art facility.
This community's been through a lot, but 2 years of waiting for this day and just seeing all of the anticipation build.
At over 24,000 square feet, Charlotte Prep's lower building is twice the size of the previous one. That structure was devastated in a fire in June of 2023. For head of lower school Megan Wright, the journey is deeply personal.
It just is magical. When we were first moving in here, I came in before the moving company started, and I got a little emotional because we have come so far.
The building features a world-class design, large classrooms, a multi-use dining hall, modern architecture, and these expansive windows, making it easy to connect students to the outdoors.
What we were really trying to do is to capture this beautiful setting that we're in with the park in the background. We're in a beautiful city and a beautiful place, so why put a wall up? We wanted to show it off with our natural light in our windows.
Teachers say they are ready for the final missing piece, their students.
Teachers are just ready to have kids in spaces. That's what makes a school a school.
The cause of the fire is still under investigation, but officials say they have ruled out foul play. The first day of class is August 20th. Jessie Pierre, WCNC Charlotte.
All right, and with that, we want to turn to a briefing that we got just a couple of hours ago. It was in our 5 o'clock hour, so we were on the air with our regular evening newscast, so we couldn't bring this briefing to you in full, but it is a national story that lots of folks are watching out of Austin, Texas. That deadly shooting in a Target parking lot, unfortunately taking the lives of 3 people, including a child. We're learning more about those victims and about the person police say are responsible. Let's listen in.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here during what is a heartbreaking and deeply painful time for our city. On behalf of the Austin Police Department, I want to express my deepest condolences to the family of Hector Martinez Machuca, Adam Chow, and his 4-year-old granddaughter. Those were the lives we lost yesterday. There are no words that can truly capture the grief these families are experiencing or the shock our community feels. To our officers and first responders who rushed to the scene and rendered aid under such tragic circumstances, thank you. I know the sights you faced yesterday will never leave you, but your compassion and your courage do not go unnoticed. What happened yesterday was an unprovoked and deliberate attack, a deliberate act of violence. Innocent lives were taken in broad daylight in a place where people should feel safe to run their everyday errands and to live their everyday lives. The actions of the suspects showed a complete disregard for human life, and the pain caused will be felt by our community for years to come. The suspect in this has been identified as Ethan Nineker, a white male, 32 years of age. Nineker has a history with the Austin Police Department, which includes assault causing bodily injury to a family member, driving while intoxicated, possession of marijuana, violation of a protective order, and 2 mental health reports. We know this incident has left many of you feeling shaken within our community, but I want to reassure everyone here that the suspect is now in custody, and at this point, we'll let justice take its course. I want to thank the community members who took time and who acted quickly, who called 911, provided witness statements, Understanding that they were inside Target, came out. We had many witnesses who were there that stayed for hours to help assist us, so I want to thank them. Our department is fully committed to seeking justice for these victims and their families, and this will remain a top priority for us as we move forward. Every question has to be answered, and every charge will be pursued that is within the law. In times like this, we must come together as a community to support the families who are grieving and to lift each other up and stand together united against violence. I'm going to now turn it over to Sergeant Sexton from our homicide unit to go over details of this incident. Sergeant.
Sorry. Is there another? Okay. Sorry. Thank you, Chief Davis. My name is Nathan Sexton. I'm one of the 2 homicide sergeants. Yesterday on Monday, August 11th, at approximately 2:15 p.m., officers responded to multiple calls of 911 shooting at the Target at 8601 Research Boulevard. When officers arrived, they found Target employee Hector Martinez Machuca suffering from gunshot wounds. He was transported to the hospital where he was later pronounced deceased. Nearby, officers located Adam Chow, his wife, and their 4-year-old granddaughter. Mr. Chow and the child had been fatally shot, and Mr. Chow's wife had sustained minor injuries. Our investigation showed that the suspect, Ethan Nineker, first shot Mr. Martinez Machuca as he was collecting carts in the parking lot. He then approached Chow's family vehicle, shooting and killing Mr. Chow and the 4-year-old before assaulting Mrs. Chow and stealing their gray Toyota 4Runner. Over the next hour, Nineker committed multiple crimes, including attempting to steal a water truck, causing multiple crashes, assaulting another female driver, and stealing her Volkswagen. He also attempted to break into a Waymo vehicle, vandalized the home of an acquaintance, and was later seen naked in a residential backyard. Officers ultimately located him walking on Montclair Street. After refusing commands, he was tased and taken into custody at 3:06 p.m. As for the charges, Nineker has been charged with 2 counts of capital murder for the deaths of Adam Chow and the 4-year-old juvenile victim, as well as the first-degree felony murder of Hector Martinez Machuca. Additional charges are pending related to assaults, vehicle thefts, and property damage. This case is being investigated as Austin's 39th, 40th, and 41st homicide of 2025. We are asking for anyone who has additional information. We know there are many people out there who may have recorded this, taken photos, any digital evidence. Right behind here, Chief, sorry. There's a QR code. We're asking anyone that has witness accounts, video footage, please contact APD at 512-974-TIPS. You may also submit the tips anonymously to the Capital Area Crime Stoppers or crimestoppers.org, or by calling 512-472-8477, or by using the QR code here displayed.
Raise our hand for questions. Okay, we'll start with Betty, then go to Kelsey.
Do you know how he got the weapons he used, or if he had a license for those weapons?
About the license, the firearm was acquired through family.
Kelsey and then Angela.
Can you explain, I know you said he started off in Research Boulevard and Target, and then he made his way carjacking multiple people and ended up in South Austin. How were you guys able to track him properly and get a hold of him in the neighborhood?
Initially, we weren't sure that it was the same person. There were no other shots fired after the initial Target incident, as far as we know. But from there, we were able to find surveillance video at multiple scenes. He was wearing the same floral Hawaiian shirt at all of these scenes.
I can answer a little bit of this too, Nate.
Sure.
I think it's also important to recognize as these events were unfolding, people were calling 911. We also had our air support in the air who was able to find the car and follow the car at that point.
Was any flock safety cameras used at all?
We no longer have flock safety cameras.
Let's go to Angela, and then we'll go to the camera over here.
Did the suspect, give any reason as to why he did this? What was motivated then?
He said that he was Jesus, and there was really no reason whatsoever given. It was a completely random choosing of the victims.
Camera here.
Gosh, so I guess going off of that, I guess sounds, was the basis that the department says the suspect has a history of mental illness? I know that was a phrase that was used yesterday, that he has a history of mental illness. What was kind of the thing that that was based on that, and if you could tell us more about that history.
I think looking at his record and APD's involvement with him, I don't want to get into the specifics at this point because we are talking about medical. But again, I can say that as far as the victims he chose, those were random, but this man had some serious issues. And I think about the systems that failed in a way as we move forward. We're looking at this background, and again, this is going to be things that are going to be coming up in the months and the years ahead. There were some serious failures here on behalf of, many when you're looking at potentially some mental illness there.
I'm just wondering if there were any recent welfare checks, and also I had heard Senator Eckhart say today that he was found naked and holding a Bible, and wondered if you could comment on that.
That is when officers approached him, and he was tased at that point and taken into custody.
And then any recent welfare checks?
I don't recall any that I saw.
Here and then Adrian.
Can you confirm if he was employed before this incident, and if there was anybody that was concerned about his behavior prior to this? I talked to somebody that knew him that said that he was acting kind of out of the normal before this.
Nathan, did you want to answer that? Nothing. Yeah.
Now, the people are very scared of these type of incidents. What you are doing for preventing these type of things when the people are going crazy with a gun?
Well, I think, you have to look at this, and we've got someone with some serious mental health issues, and where are we able to take them? What help are they getting when you're dealing with someone with these issues? Where does someone with this capacity to do this get a weapon, and when does a family member feel comfortable giving someone with these issues a weapon?
Go to Mario, and then we'll head back over here.
With the criminal history that he has, a lot of people are asking how was he wandering in the street, like how he wasn't part of the criminal justice, why was he free?
Yeah, I think looking at his record, I don't think we had any incidents with him. I think 2024 was the last contact we had, and that was him calling for some found property that he was turning over to us. I have not had an opportunity, and I don't know that Nathan has from Homicide, an opportunity to delve into his history here and what each case, where that developed from.
Go over here, and then we'll go back to you.
Yeah, you guys said, when you found him, it was a family member's gun. Did you guys end up recovering that weapon? Do you have any other details on that weapon specifically?
We do, yes. So I'd mentioned he had crashed out that gray 4Runner, and it was recovered in that vehicle before he switched and then proceeded to assault other people without a gun.
Do you know how many shots were fired?
I don't. That's unknown at this time. We're still collecting all the information, but it's believed the only shots fired were at the target.
And piggybacking on that, could the family face any charges for allowing this weapon to get into his hands? Or I don't know all the details of it, but what could we see there?
Sure, unknown. We still have to investigate that.
But we'll hear in the red and then up here.
Yeah, sorry. That was going to be my question, is whether or not the family member would be held accountable, or if there will be any accountability for the person who gave him that gun.
Sure. Like I said, we still have to look into it.
And on the history of mental health, are you guys aware of a specific diagnosis that he has received over time? And at any point, did he receive treatment? Was he ever put somewhere for treatment? Any more light on that? Because you said, Chief, you mentioned that the system failed. I'm just trying to get a better understanding of what part of the system actually failed.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about the past incidents that we had with him on mental health runs, and where is the follow-up there? And for someone to have the capacity to take the life of 3 innocent people and a 4-year-old child. As we move forward and are looking more into this, it will be interesting to kind of peel that back and see where those failures took place.
But is there a specific diagnosis?
There is not that I'm aware of, no.
We'll go to Kelsey, then in the green, and then
Can you tell us what kind of gun you had him?
You want the gun?
I don't remember the exact type. It was a handgun pistol.
Status of the people who were carjacked, like injured, or their cars. What can you tell us about that?
Assault with injury. So, like the driver of the water truck was assaulted. He's okay. It was relatively minor injury. Obviously, trauma. Like someone jumps in your vehicle, probably going to be more lasting injury from that.
And the Volkswagen?
Same thing. Assaulted physically, but and thrown from the vehicle as well.
Take a few more. Let's go to Eva, then do we have a question in the back here? And then we'll go back over here.
There was recently a bill passed through the legislature banning red flag enforcement of guns, basically keeping an anti-red flag ban is what it was. And I know that that hasn't gone into effect yet, but I'm curious if this has you concerned about, you know, Austin's ability to keep guns away from people who maybe shouldn't have them.
Well, I think I need to learn more about this incident, right? And was this gun handed to him? How was this given before I make any type of statement like that?
Do you know if he was on any drugs at the time? And then
Do you want to talk about that? Sure.
The press release mentioned something about him throwing a brick in someone's window from his Bible study. Do you know more about how that was called in and more about the Bible study connection there?
Sure. We're still looking into the drug portion of it. He could have been under the influence of narcotics. It might not necessarily be all attributed to mental illness, so we're still investigating all of that. The brick through the window was called in by somebody he had known who had claimed to have had Bible study with him in the past. So he recognized him, called his window being vandalized, and then he left that scene and proceeded to move on.
We'll do here, Betty, and then finish here.
Yeah, Target told us to ask you guys any questions as regards to their situation. They told me today that the store is closed. Do you guys have any timeline as to when that Target will reopen?
We do not know. As soon as we clear the scene, which we did last night, it was in their custody, so we're not holding it for any other reason, so it's up to them as to when they were to reopen.
So can you elaborate the timeline when you said that he tried to steal the water truck, couldn't start it, and then he just thought he just threw it over the cows were in?
Yes. So tell me the specific incidents, the times you're looking for?
Yeah, so the water truck, before he got to the Forerunner, he didn't start the truck.
So the water truck was at about...
All right, folks, so there you have it. A large share, pretty much all of the briefing that we had just a couple of hours ago from Austin, Texas, regarding that deadly Target shooting. A really tragic situation out there, which looks like communities still trying to wrap their brains around it, and of course an investigation that continues. We want to talk about a topic here in the Carolinas that we've been focused on all month long. That is Clear the Shelters. It's that annual event where we and other NBC stations will partner with local rescues and shelters to try to get as many dogs and cats and animals adopted out as possible, and also in general just try to raise awareness about animal welfare. We had an earlier discussion here on Live Impact News with a local group that supports the Lincoln County Animal Services Shelter, and really eye-opening just to kind of see the work that they do, and really illustrates what we can all do if we want to make a difference. And we did talk about some of their adoptable pets. So with that, let's get a listen to this chat with HATS. And we are turning now to a local effort that we've been highlighting throughout the month of August. We're talking about Clear the Shelters here. So day after day, we've been speaking with a local rescue or shelter who's participating with this magnificent campaign to try to get as many pets adopted as possible, raise awareness about animal welfare and how we can all play a part in that. And so we're really excited to join now with some folks in Lincoln County. We are speaking right now with Helping Animals to Survive. This is essentially a non-profit no-kill partner for the Lincoln County Animal Shelter. And so we have Ken Phelps who's joining us right now. You're a board member. You do a lot of work with HATS, and also, of course, by nature of what your group does, a lot of work with the Lincoln County Animal Shelter too. So thanks so much for joining us here in the Live Impact News studio.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Well, we're really excited to talk about all that you do and talk about some of your adoptable pets. You've shared some pictures and bios with us ahead of time, and they got some real cuties, so we're excited to talk about those. I guess first off, I'd love to talk about the no-kill element that y'all have been spearheading in Lincoln County. This has been underway for, from what I understand, more than 10 years is something that's been a priority for your group, and y'all have been able to achieve the no-kill status for the Lincoln County Shelter. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, it all started, I believe, in 2013. And there was a group of people that approached the board commissioners in Lincoln County, and they asked if they could get the county to consider being a no-kill shelter. The county at that time, they were not aware or not keen to that project, so it took a lot of letter writing, a lot of promotions, a lot of people involved in getting it done. And slowly but surely, the commissioners of the county said, okay, we'll consider going to a no-kill. But for the first couple years, they didn't put anything in place to do that. And then they had a change of personnel, and the new director at the shelter was able to implement things, and it took a couple years to become a no-kill, but I believe it was in June of 2027 that we officially became a no-kill. The no-kill requirements are 12 consecutive months of 90% or better release rate, and you have to do that every month. If you fall behind even 89.9%, that no-kill goes away and you have to start all over again. And fortunately, we've been able to do it and maintain that for a number of years now, and we've not fallen below that 90% in all those years, although sometimes it was very, very close, and we had to put an extreme effort in getting some of the dogs and cats adopted.
I mean, I can imagine how difficult maintaining a status like that can be, not just any time, but maybe particularly now, because I feel like, you know, with some of my volunteer work with at least Charlotte Shelter, I've heard that there's kind of a golden era, if you will, during the pandemic when lots of folks, at least here in Charlotte, wanted to adopt pets. They wanted someone to keep them company while they were working from home primarily or locked down on quarantine. And then kind of after that, it feels like there are various factors that went into play, but now we're starting to see a lot of animals come into shelters, and sometimes it does feel like it's never ending, at least from what we're seeing here in the Charlotte area and kind of the surrounding suburbs. How is it in Lincoln County, from what you understand?
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
The pandemic, we had a lot of dogs adopted. We do it at the PetSmart in Lincolnton, and for 2 or 3 years, that PetSmart was the #1 adoption center in all the Southeast. And that includes, I believe, other competitors as well. And from what the managers told me, the numbers weren't even close. Unfortunately, when the pandemic was over, people started going back to work, then all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, that dog I adopted, well, what do I do with it now? I'm going to be gone all day. And they try maybe to get it rehomed, but unfortunately, some cases, they basically just drop the dog off someplace and let the dog fend for itself, and that's a sad part of it. But we have to look at it as every dog we get adopted is that's one more that we don't have to worry about in the shelter. So.
Yeah, and well, speaking of getting dogs adopted, we've prepared a bit of a slideshow for folks so we can go through some of the pictures that you sent. And I'll kind of direct you. We have a little monitor. Ken, if you ever want to look off to the side, you can see what is on the stream. So right now it's us, but we're about to show Randall first off, because Randall here is adoptable. He's 5 years old, neutered male boxer mix, and he's got some great notes from what I understand. Y'all do a lot of work with volunteering, and so I can imagine you have some volunteers with the shelter who've spent some time with Randall and they've gotten to know him. So what can you tell us about Randall?
Well, Randall has been with us probably the longest. He's been with us, I think, since December of last year. We've had him at our adoption event. Randall is a great dog. He's very friendly. He likes to be a lap dog. He can be dog selective, and that's the case of a lot of dogs. They have a tendency to, after they've been in the kennel, they want to be protective, I guess. So Randall we'd love to have a meet and greet with other dogs. We've had a couple, and it just hasn't worked out yet, but we will find the right home for him.
Well, I mean, and I think that is a great segue into maybe talking about the term dog selective, because we used it actually in the last segment that we did for Clear the Shelters here on Live Impact. But it's a term that we hear in rescue where you have a dog who probably has the potential to get along well with other dogs, but you just kind of have to find out what that factor is. Is it, you know, if Randall's a male, does he get along better with female dogs? Or does Randall get along better with dogs his own size versus smaller dogs? Any indication that he might have a certain, you know, dog that he would get along with? You haven't found it yet, and it's potential that you just...
No, and at our shelter they do a kind of a let the dogs roam in their play area together. They don't just bring one dog out and leave it. Some of our shelter personnel have been trained to handle dogs that are in a group. And Randall is out there in those groups a lot of times, but sometimes he has a tendency to be maybe a little pushy towards other dogs. We just don't know. Some dogs don't like little dogs. Some dogs don't like bigger dogs. So it's hard to say where Randall's focus is. A lot of times it can be just, if we do have a dog that's adopted, it's a slow process in introducing him to other dogs. Let them know that he is part of the pack, and that's exactly what they are, whether it be 2 dogs or 5 dogs. When they get to know each other and they become accepted or accept other dogs, that becomes a pack instinct for them.
Yeah. Well, I would urge folks not to write Randall off just because, I've seen multiple cases where either with training or just taking the time, as you mentioned, being nice and slow, Randall could probably find, a household that he would get along great with, whoever the family member is. But we've got another pup to share in the meantime. So our next pup up is Fred. So give us a second. We're going to get Fred up on the screen. So looks like Fred is 67 pounds, neutered male terrier mix. Good guy to be outdoors, being, running around, scrappy dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is. Randall is basically a typical pit bull mix. He's like a blue pit. If you look closely at Randall, he has some scars on his face, so we know there's been some difficulty in his life in the past.
Aww.
But he still is real friendly. He loves people, and typical pit bulls or the mixes, they love kids.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely love kids. A lot of people don't realize that the early 1900s, they were considered the nanny dog.
Yep.
People loved them because they loved kids and they were protective of their kids.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, he looks like a cutie, and I'd certainly love to see him in a forever home, considering the fact that you just mentioned it sounds like maybe he has been through some tough times. We've got Jersey up next. Ooh, I love the ears on Jersey.
Jersey's one of my favorites.
Yeah, tell us about her.
Well, Jersey has been to 2 or 3 of our adoption events. I, for the life of me, cannot figure out why she hasn't been adopted.
Oh.
She's sweet, as I mentioned to you in the bio I sent. She has a tendency to be protective when she's within a barrier, like a crate or a cage or something like that. She becomes a totally different dog once she's out. She's happy, she plays, she likes people. All those transitions from the cage to outside, they go away once she's out. And
Yeah.
she is very, very active.
I just love her face. She's got almost like a Batman look, but
Yeah, she's got the years, for sure.
And I feel like, this is probably a good time to talk about barrier reactivity, because that's something that I've seen, historically, that could be trained out of a pet. Absolutely. If you, either get professional help or, you could do some good research online. There are a lot of tricks and tools that you can learn about to kind of get a dog a little bit more comfortable. Essentially what you find is sometimes there's a little bit more anxiety with a dog that is meeting another dog, let's say, but there's a barrier between them. So maybe it's a kennel door. In some cases you see leash reactivity, which is kind of considered like a barrier as well. The dog doesn't feel free to move around, so they get a little bit more anxious. But all of that I've seen, there are multiple trainers in our area that can work on that. And, if that is something that somebody would like to do.
And in Jersey's case, hers is more reactive when she's kind of boxed in.
Okay.
We see a lot of dogs that the shelter people do their best to give a bio on them, and then we get them at our adoption event. And for example, I'll give a perfect example, that we had a dog adopted a couple weeks ago. He was supposed to not like men. Well, I don't know where it came from. Could have been totally from the kennel, but he was his name was Roscoe, and he was so into everybody. Matter of fact, when a couple would approach him, he'd more often go to the man than the woman. And
that's interesting.
I think I sent you a picture of Roscoe. He is the one that is laying down with his belly being rubbed with a huge smile on his face.
I think, let's see, we might have that actually. It's, Jeb, it's the on the right side of our play deck.
Oh, gotcha.
Right, on the right side, right at the bottom. Tuesday. Yep. That's him. I think that's him. Is that him?
Yep, that's Roscoe.
We got him.
Look at the smile on his face.
And that looks like a man petting him, by the way.
Yeah, that's the dangerous man that he doesn't supposedly like. And we saw that all day long. And he was another one that was great to be a couch potato.
Yeah. So that's some of the pictures, by the way, that you sent us of one of your adoption events, or actually probably multiple of your events, kind of all edited together. But we've got 4 folks up next. She's a cutie, and she's the chocolate lab. I love her. And I do have, sorry, folks. They're not adoptable. They're already spoken for. I apologize. That was a miscue, mispunch. But let's go ahead and get to Katie, I believe, is the next one. Yep. She's a senior. I love seniors, by the way.
Katie, we had her last week at the adoption event. She's laid back. She is a senior. They have a guest age around 8 at the shelter. She seemed to act younger than 8. The only thing they can tell by age when they come in as strays is by what their teeth look like. So that's why some dogs, they do their best again to guess their ages. Katie is typical chocolate lab. She's fun-loving. She's just a sweet girl. My wife had her part of the time last week, and she just loves her. If I didn't have enough dogs at home, I probably would find a home for Katie.
Yeah. I mean, loves a good lap. I love to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like a nice security blanket for you.
Exactly.
Oh, and yeah, the seniors sometimes can get overlooked in the shelter, which is such a shame, because you find that sometimes the puppy behaviors, if you feel like you're not quite ready to navigate all that, the seniors kind of come free of that, I want to say, in a lot of cases. Sometimes they're housebroken because maybe they have lived in a house previously before they came to the shelter. What a face. I just love to see it.
Yep, I love that face.
All right, our next pup here, I believe we've got up next. Yep, that's the scarf baby. I call her Mandy Rose.
Mandy Rose, yeah.
She is a lab, and she is on the senior side as well.
She is, but there is definitely not a senior bone in her body right now.
Oh, she's still energetic.
She is very energetic. In the cages that we had them in over the weekend, she spent as much time standing up as she did down, and she didn't lay down till the end of the day. And sometimes the day gets long for them, so.
Yeah.
But she was up every time somebody came around. Mandy May is a type of dog that probably you wouldn't want her to be adopted if you had domestic goats or chickens or anything like that, because she has the instinct. But she's a great girl. She's been out a couple times on a 5-bark stay. That's where people can take them out, give them a few days out of the shelter, and then they can bring them back. And so she's been out a couple times. So she's been at the shelter probably overall about 2 months, I'm going to say.
Yeah. But she seemingly does well with other dogs.
Yes,
which is good.
She's good with other dogs. That's correct.
Very, very cute. Yeah, likes to chase goats was the note that you sent me.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my, Mandy Rose.
That was her last 5 bark.
Okay. And I believe we have a kitty cat too for our next one. So our next is Snowball, who is also on the older side, but he's got a little blep for us, a little tongue action in that picture, which is so cute. It's Tongue Out Tuesday. Tell us about Snowball.
Well, Snowball is been at the shelter for a little while. Like you said, senior cats and dogs are a little harder to get adopted. Everybody loves the kittens, and we are still in kitten season, but Snowball is still available and adopted. She might need a little bit of patience to adapt, because cats have a tendency to be a little bit harder to adapt to a new environment when they're older. And I don't have a lot of information on Snowball, but she is right now the only senior. We only had 3 other kittens available at the shelter, but that's probably going to change. They do their spay-neuters at the shelters on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I looked at the stray hold, and there's about 30 cats on stray hold right now. So they will be coming available soon, and we have those cats available at the PetSmart in Lincolnton. They're also available at a cat cafe in Lincolnton, I believe.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so those are the main highlights that you sent to us ahead of time. Obviously, you have many more animals. I did want to mention that I put together a web article with more information about HATS, more information about Lincoln County Animal Services with links, and also pictures to all of our adoptables, plus the link to check out all of the adoptables that you have on your website right now, so that can kind of give folks a better idea of maybe the fuller look of what might be at the shelter.
Right.
I did want to mention, you know, as we kind of start to wrap things up, the fact that y'all do a lot of work there in Lincoln County, not just working to get animals adopted, but also just to kind of support the shelter and adopters in any way possible. And try to get animals into rescues too. We have some images from Danny, who is absolutely adorable, and it looks like she might have gone through some things.
Yes. I wanted to mention Danny because this highlighted the cooperation between several agencies in Lincoln County. I believe it was either the Lincolnton Police or the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office that found Danny. She'd been hit by a car. She was about 4 months old at the time. The officer picked Danny up and took her to Denver Emergency, where they evaluated her and determined that her back legs were kind of paralyzed at the time. The vet there felt that possibly she may have to be put down, but the officer called the shelter. The shelter director immediately called our president of HATS and said, "What do you think? Do you think we can help Danny?" And we said 100%. So they did a little bit of surgery there at the Denver Emergency. They took Danny back to the shelter, did some therapy with her. One of our volunteers had that wheelchair that she's outfitted with as one that he'd had for one of his dogs. He donated that to her, and the day that she first got the wheels behind her was the happiest day I think I've ever seen Danny. Aww. She had smile on her face. She was rolling up and down the aisle at the shelter, happy as can be. They continue to do water therapy with her, and eventually I believe it was the Piedmont Rescue then took her, and they were able to give her more therapy. I don't think Danny, she was able to stand a little bit without the wheelchair, but she never, to my knowledge, ever got back her full strength in her. But eventually she was adopted from Piedmont, found her forever home, and she's been very happy.
That's great. It's so great to see. And I think it's the reason we wanted to share the story is just one of the many ways that folks can help out. You know, you kind of pointed out the fact that sometimes you already have a lot of pets in the house. You still want to make a difference, feel like you're making an impact. You could volunteer, you could foster, you could help out an organization like HATS in all of the different efforts that you have, just getting animals from shelters into rescues. You talked about filling Kongs. Danny's story is just one example of how volunteers can come together to make a difference for one animal that might have not had the chance otherwise, and who knows what could have happened to Danny, you know, if y'all didn't step in.
Danny was such a sweetheart.
Yeah. Anything that you want to leave us with before we wrap things up here about, you know, message to folks watching at home about the need, how they can help, just anything?
Well, there's many ways people can help. Obviously, adoptions is our number one goal. I have a number one goal, and that's 0. That 0 means no dogs, no cats in the shelter. And I actually saw it once for about 2 hours. But,
wow, that's incredible though, even for that amount of time. At least for dogs.
I don't know about cats, but at least there was one time when we had an event like Clear the Shelter, and every dog was adopted. Unfortunately, one of the dogs did come back, but that was a great day. volunteering. HATS is a total volunteer organization. 93% of our funds go right directly back to the animals. We support the shelter. Our county has been very supportive to us. They're providing us with a new shelter they're going to be building here in the very near future. The site work has been being completed, and I think that says a lot. We're a small county overall compared to some of the larger ones around, but the people in this county have a lot of heart and a lot of giving. And help the shelter, help HATS. We do an adoption event at PetSmart in Lincolnton every Saturday from 10:30 till 3:30, and we're there every single Saturday. We run 2 shifts, a morning shift and the afternoon shift. And I have 4 other leaders that work diligently to keep this going. Some of them have been doing this for a long time, and I can't say enough for the volunteers that we have.
It really makes a difference when you have a community coming together to do the important work. Ken Phelps, we thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you are doing for the animals. We appreciate it, and we're glad we could kind of profile some of that work for folks here.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for taking the time to let us talk about it.
Absolutely. We'll remind folks once again, the group is called HATS, Helping Animals to Survive. The shelter where you saw all those pets, that's Lincoln County Animal Services. We've got more information on our website, WCNC.com, inside the WCNC Charlotte mobile app. And just keep it here on WCNC Plus. Throughout the rest of the month, we'll be highlighting local animals, local rescues, local shelters, and how you can make a difference in this Clear the Shelters campaign. All right, folks, we're coming in here with some breaking news just into the Live Impact News studio. Story we've been covering throughout the day. That murder suspect that police thought was in Los Angeles, fleeing from Washington State, is now in custody as we speak. We actually brought you in our 3 o'clock hour some aerial footage from LA showing a neighborhood where police had actually set up a perimeter where they believed he was. Sounds like they've actually taken him into custody at this point, and he was in fact arrested this afternoon in downtown LA. Apparently officers got a report from a security officer, and the images that you were seeing there, the kind of surveillance type images, that was from Lost Hills Sheriff Station. They actually had some images of him of an unrelated encounter that was in Longview. So police there say that he was actually released from prison about 10 months after serving more than 2 decades for an assault with a machete, and more recently is connected apparently to the stabbing that took the life of a 64-year-old woman and injured a 73-year-old man in Washington State. We're told as well that he is believed to actually have been working as a handyman for those people. It was a woman and her brother-in-law. And so that is the very latest there out of LA. Once again, breaking update in case you're just joining us here. That suspect that was wanted for murder out of Washington State has been captured and arrested in Los Angeles, California. As we get more information, updates certainly to come here on Live Impact. Meantime, we've been listening into the White House press secretary briefing today. We kind of dipped out in the middle of that because we had more breaking news to get to, but we're going to rejoin that now. Obviously, a lot of topics discussed, including the saga underway in D.C. with the deployment of National Guard. Let's listen in.
Everybody, good to see all of you here again today. On Friday morning, President Trump will travel across the country to Anchorage, Alaska for a bilateral meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The brutal war between Russia and Ukraine broke out under Joe Biden's incompetent leadership, but President Trump is determined to try and end this war and stop the killing. As the president has said over and over again, his strong preference will always be for peace and partnership whenever those outcomes can possibly be achieved. There is no leader in the world right now who has been more committed to preventing wars or ending them than President Donald Trump. Just look at what took place here at the White House last Friday, when President Trump hosted the Azerbaijani president and Armenian prime minister and got the two leaders to sign a historic joint declaration for peace, ending a decades-long conflict that disrupted the region and claimed countless lives. In other news, we continue to see positive economic reports across the board. Today's CPI report revealed that inflation beat market expectations once again, and inflation remains stable. Overall, inflation has run at a 1.9 average annual pace in President Trump's first 6 months in office. Prices for everyday goods continue to decline. Energy prices fell in July, including gasoline, which is down nearly 10% over last year, and propane, which is down 2.5% over last year as well. Egg prices fell once again in July and are down 20% since President Trump took office. Shelter inflation, the largest contributor to overall inflation, is at its lowest level since October of 2021. Wage growth for American workers is beating inflation once again. As inflation declines, this administration continues to be wholeheartedly committed to putting more money back into the American people's pockets. American real wages are up 1.3% over last year and have increased each month since President Trump took office. And small business optimism, according to this morning's report, has also reached a 5-month high. Ignore the panicans and trust in President Trump. That is our motto here at the White House. The America First economic agenda is working. On another matter, yesterday, President Trump took bold action to finally restore law and order right here in our nation's capital. The president declared a crime emergency in the District of Columbia, federalized the D.C. Police Department, and mobilized the D.C. National Guard to end violent crime in our nation's capital. As part of the president's massive law enforcement surge, last night, approximately 850 officers and agents were surged across the city. They made a total of 23 arrests, including multiple other contacts. Last night, these arrests consisted of homicide, firearms offenses, possession with intent to distribute narcotics, fare evasion, lewd acts, stalking, possession of a high-capacity magazine, fleeing to elude in a vehicle, no permits, driving under the influence, reckless driving, and a bench warrant. A total of 6 illegal handguns were seized off of District of Columbia streets as part of last night's effort. This is only the beginning. Over the course of the next month, the Trump administration will relentlessly pursue and arrest every violent criminal in the district who breaks the law, undermines public safety, and endangers law-abiding Americans. President Trump will not be deterred by soft-on-crime Democrats and media activists who refuse to acknowledge this rampant violence on our streets. He is going to make our nation's capital the most beautiful and safe city on earth, just as he promised on the campaign trail. Staying on the topic of public safety, the Trump administration continues to shatter records on border security. According to brand new numbers released this morning from Customs and Border Patrol, illegal crossings have fallen to all-time lows once again. Here were the records set in July. Again, these numbers were released this morning. The lowest monthly nationwide encounters ever, down nearly 90% from the monthly average under the Biden administration. The lowest monthly Border Patrol apprehensions nationwide ever, smashing the previous record set the prior month in June. The lowest monthly Southwest border apprehensions ever. The lowest daily apprehension average ever. The lowest single-day apprehensions ever. And for the third straight month, there were 0 illegal aliens released into the country. Let me repeat that remarkable statistic. For the third month in a row, not a single illegal alien was released by the Trump administration into the United States of America. This is historic. Under President Trump, this border is the most secure it has ever been. When you fortify the border, when you restore deterrence, and when you empower Border Patrol agents and our brave men and women in uniform to actually do their jobs to enforce our laws, like this president has, this is the incredible result. And in the interior of our country, criminal illegal aliens continue to be arrested and removed. Here are some of the criminals arrested by ICE in just the last few days. ICE Buffalo arrested an illegal alien from Jamaica convicted of attempted murder. ICE Buffalo also arrested an illegal alien from Ecuador convicted of leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. ICE Houston arrested an illegal alien from Mexico convicted of manslaughter. ICE Newark arrested an illegal alien from Mexico convicted of the sexual assault of a minor. ICE Dallas arrested an illegal alien from Mexico convicted of assault causing bodily injury. And already the Trump administration has arrested more than 300,000 illegal aliens in 2025. Again, more than 300,000 illegal alien criminals have been arrested in the interior of our country in the first 6 months of this administration. And despite many false reports in the media, nearly 70% of these arrests have been criminal aliens with criminal charges or prior convictions. This is success all around. This is removing the most dangerous public safety threats from America's communities and returning these individuals to their home countries. So there's been success all around. I'm sure you have a lot of questions today. I'm happy to get to them, so let's get started. And as always, we'll start with our new media seat, who is our podcast host today, Benny Johnson. Benny, why don't you kick us off, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Caroline. As a D.C. resident of 15 years, I lived on Capitol Hill. I witnessed so many muggings and so much theft. I lost track. I was carjacked. I have murders on my Ring camera and mass shootings. I witnessed a woman on my block get held up at gunpoint for $20, and my house was set ablaze in an arson with my infant child inside. And so to any reporter that says and lies that D.C. is a safe place to live and work, let me just say this. Thank you. Thank you for making the city safe, because no parent should have to go through what my family went through, having the fire department rip open their door to save their infant child. And so thank you for your work on securing this city. My question to you is this. Nancy Pelosi has attacked the president for deploying the National Guard to the city, saying that it is to cover for his incompetence. Hillary Clinton has also attacked the president for securing the city of Washington, D.C. I'd like to get your response to Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton.
Sure. Well, first of all, Benny, I'm so sorry that happened to you and your family. There have been, unfortunately, far too many victims of crime in this city, and I know the majority of residents in the District of Columbia agree with you. In fact, a new poll from the Washington Post I was reading this morning, this was released in May of 2024, so it's quite funny how many of you in the media agreed with what the president was saying yesterday, but now once the president says it, many of you are disagreeing with him. But this poll released by the Washington Post found that 65% of district residents think crime is an extremely serious or a very serious problem, and this was up from 56% last year. So the concern that you share with so many other residents in the District of Columbia is real, and that's why this president is taking action to address it. To get to the heart of your question, I think it's despicable that Democrats cannot agree that we need more law and order in a city that has been ravaged by violence, crime, murders, property theft. This should be a winning issue for all Americans. I don't understand. It's just anything President Trump does, the Democrats want to disagree with. I think the president would love to work with Democrats on this issue to bring law and order to America's cities, but unfortunately they have failed, and that's why he's taken this historic action to federalize the National Guard. And as you're seeing from last night's numbers, we already have seen success. We are removing violent offenders, we are arresting criminals, and we are removing drugs and firearms off of the streets of the city to make it safer for all of its residents.
Just a very quick follow-up to that. Given the heroic actions of a member of this administration just a few blocks from this building, will the president consider giving the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Big Balls?
I haven't spoken to him about that, but perhaps it's something he would consider. I'll ask him and get back to you, Benny. Thanks for being here. Gabe.
Thank you, Caroline. Regarding the President Trump summit on Friday, why not invite Ukrainian President Zelensky to that summit? I know the president said yesterday that he's planning to speak with him right after the summit and even before, but why not invite Zelensky, and whose decision was it to not invite him? Was it the president or was it President Putin?
Well, this meeting came about because the president of Russia asked the president of the United States to meet through his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, who, as you all know, traveled to Russia to have a conversation with Putin at his request. And so the president is agreeing to this meeting at the request of President Putin. And the goal of this meeting for the president is to walk away with a better understanding of how we can end this war. And the president said at this podium yesterday when he joined all of you in the room that he hopes in the future there can be a trilateral meeting with these three leaders to finally bring this conflict to an end. But this administration has really used every lever war has taken every measure to achieve peace through a diplomatic solution. And I think the President of the United States getting in the room with the President of Russia, sitting face to face rather than speaking over the telephone, will give this president the best indication of how to end this war and where this is headed.
And another question on something that happened yesterday, but I wanted to get the White House response. A judge ruled that the grand jury transcripts in Ghislaine Maxwell's case should not be released. What's the White House's response to that? And do you plan to appeal? And what do you tell President Trump's supporters who want that information released?
We think that decision is unfortunate. Of course, we moved to unseal that information because the president has said he wants to see credible evidence released. As for the appeal process, I would defer you to the Department of Justice for that.
Rachel. Thanks so much, Caroline. We are learning that President Trump spoke with Ukrainian President Zelensky. I was curious if you can share any more details about their call, and did Zelensky give President Trump any red lines, any non-starters ahead of this summit on Friday?
Look, I don't want to reveal the private conversations between the president and President Zelensky, but what I can tell you is that the president has deep respect for all parties that are involved in this conflict and are trying to bring this conflict to an end. After Special Envoy Witkoff returned from his meeting with President Putin in Russia, his first phone call was to President Trump. And President Trump's first phone call was to President Zelensky and to our friends in Europe to keep everybody in the loop about where the United States can see moving the ball forward to end this conflict. And so we continue to be very much engaged with President Zelensky and the Ukrainians, but also our allies in Europe as well.
And then just one more for you. How does the president measure success coming out of this meeting? The president at times has suggested that Putin might be tapping him along. Is he prepared to walk out of this meeting if he senses that Putin is not serious about ending this war?
I think I just answered that question for you and what the goal and the expectation of the meeting is. And I won't jump ahead of any hypotheticals, and I'll leave it to the president to speak to all of you after the meeting, which I'm very confident he will. Steve.
Is he optimistic that a deal will emerge from this meeting, or is he simply going to listen?
I think this is a listening exercise for the president. Look, only one party that's involved in this war is going to be present. And so this is for the president to go and to get, again, a more firm and better understanding of how we can hopefully bring this war to an end.
Caroline, how did you settle on Alaska as the site for this? So there were some other sites being discussed. This is like it was a midpoint between the two leaders?
There were many sites discussed, but of course Alaska is a state within the United States of America, so the president is very honored and looks forward to hosting President Putin on American soil.
Last thing, is there a joint news conference plan, or will the president have a solo one? What sort of scheduling stuff?
Yeah, the mechanics and the scheduling, Steve, are still being ironed out.
All right, folks, our time here on Live Impact News is coming to a close just for tonight. Of course, we'll be back with your live breaking news, weather, and sports in the morning, but we've got the news coming up at 11, so keep it here on WCNC Plus, and we'll turn you over to the next hour of programming. Thanks for joining us.